Kind of giving us some copium for maybe Sunday's result, and then we're going to preview some of the Monday game. But John, my guy, how you doing this morning?
Man, just got off the phone with Connor Stallions, giving him my insights regarding Penn State, Ohio State. Man, what the heck is going on with Michigan? I think that it's been a crazy week for Jim Harbaugh and that program, but even a crazier week for the Lions with everything that happened last week and what's upcoming with the deadline. Let's go, man. I'm excited.
I want to ask you about this Sunday. Just some of your takeaway. I mean, I don't even know what the hell you take away from that, but yeah, maybe not even takeaways, John, but just your thoughts on that performance. And I kind of mentioned it earlier this week, and I don't know if you kind of heard where we were coming from, but I'm not going to hit the panic button yet. It is disturbing to see a result like that. But then you see the 49ers, not the same fashion, but they lose 2 straight. You see the Dolphins get blown out by the Eagles in the not blown out as much, but by 2 scores. And then they lose to the Bills. I'm not going to hit the panic button yet, John, but where are you at after that loss? And then we'll get to the Raiders game.
Obviously disappointed like everybody else. You thought that the game plan would be a little bit better on both sides of the football. I thought that Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell simply flat out coached by the Ravens. Players said that they saw things out there that they had never seen before from the Ravens, and it speaks to where the Lions are at. The Ravens highlighted everything that they heard about the Lions, all the hype, and they went out there and took it to the Lions. So it was disappointing. It was frustrating. I think the thing that disappointed me the most was the fact that Aaron Glenn's defense really didn't give the team at all any chance to get into the game. Far too much cushion. The defensive line, all the issues that you saw that you maybe would have been worried about were on display, not getting enough pressure. And unfortunately, if you give any quarterback that much time and that much cushion to the receivers, they're going to find the open receiver. And basically, the game was over before you sat down and cracked open your beer. It was 28-0. So it was disappointing. I'm not panicking. It's a good football team. But to me, it definitely tells me if you want to have playoff success this year, your games better be at Ford Field.
Yes, so obviously Aaron Glenn and the defense did not have their finest hour. I would agree with you on that. But you know who I feel like some people are giving a little bit of a free pass to, and I don't think you will, John, is one Jared Goff. I don't think he was good enough. He led the offense to 6 points, no touchdowns, 1 interception, was missing a lot of throws. But I also think that going home at Ford Field, playing a bad Raiders defense, is a good time for him to bounce back. Do you have any doubt that Jared Goff will be able to bounce back in the next game on Monday Night Football against the Raiders?
Or do we have to steal some signals? Just tell it to me straight, Tom. Just tell me. What do we got to do?
Good one, Jeff.
Look, in the NFL, it's all good. You can do whatever you want. Literally, I'll share a quick story. I was in the press box in the Falcons game, and I typically like to sit by myself a little bit. There's a lot of open space, but there was just a good vantage point in the second row there. They have me typically sitting in the first row, and I'm sitting next to a Falcon scout, and it was the time when Sewell kind of was dealing with a little bit of an injury, and he goes, they're probably going to move him over to the left side, right? When Decker was dealing with the injury, excuse me. And I was like, I'm not sure if I should give that information or not. It was wild. So I just kind of played it cool. Yeah, look, in the NFL, everybody is looking for an edge, an angle, and things like that. So it's crazy to see the lengths that people will go to try to get a win. But Jared Goff, of course, he plays great at Ford Field. I think that the comforts of the conditions at Ford Field make it really good for a quarterback like Jared Goff. And I think the Lions are going to definitely take a step forward after a performance like that. They get back to the practice field this week, and they're going to be that they got that nasty taste in their mouth. But look, what happens when you're in the elements? You got to step up your game. And Jared Goff, just unfortunately, with the pressure that he faced and not having the run game, not having David Montgomery was huge against the Ravens because you couldn't set up your play action. And it just, like I said, it just snowballed. Everything went astray. But I think that Jared Goff will definitely be able to bounce back. But here's the problem. The formula is there. It's clear that if you're an opponent and you're going to face the Lions, if you have the ability on your defensive line to pressure Jared Goff, it's going to be definitely beneficial because Goff under pressure in the elements just isn't simply a guy that's going to be able to elude the pressure and extend plays. So if you have a great defensive line and a stout defense, you can do some things against Jared Goff, because when he's pressured, man, it's not a good time for the Lions.
And John, another thing too about this upcoming Monday night game. It's a big game, obviously prime time. It's big for the Lions. A lot of people are going to be tuning in. But this Las Vegas Raiders team, like how bad they've been offensively. They've scored 20 points uno times, John. Uno times. They've scored 20 once. So when you talk about this defense, it's a much easier matchup, at least on paper. But in my opinion, the Lions have to not only win, but personally to kind of get back nationally, and some of that praise is to take care of the Raiders. I think they can do that. But is there anything that I don't even know if it's like, is there anything you'd worry about the Raiders? But should people be sleeping on the Raiders, or am I right for saying they are awful by only scoring 20 once this season? They just look bad, even though they're 3-4. They look terrible.
Man, Jeff, I think the only bigger fraud than the Michigan Wolverines is Josh McDaniels. He rode the success of being the coordinator of Tom Brady to multiple jobs. I mean, it really, it's a head scratcher when you look at it. What he did, the abomination that he was with the Broncos, what are the Raiders seeing in Josh McDaniels? I mean, obviously this is a guy that is known for offensive prowess, working with the Patriots. But I think he benefited from working with Tom Brady and now is stealing money from the Raiders. That offense is terrible. You look at it and you have Devontae Adams and you don't target him enough. How is this offense playing this poorly? It's really unfortunate. And then you go out and you add Jimmy Garoppolo, who obviously clearly can't stay out on the field. And look what happens. I think the Lions are hoping that Garoppolo gets out there, because I think guys like Aiden Hutchinson, who also need to step up more and beat their one-on-one matchups and overcome double teams. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a candidate maybe not to finish this game, because I think the defensive line is going to see a sitting target and they're going to have their success. I think the Raiders, when you go out and you lose to the Bears, that's really embarrassing at the highest level, because I think the Raiders have a little bit more talent than the Bears, but they do have players, they have weapons, but I just think collectively they're not playing all well. It's just not a team unit. I think that it's a collection of guys out there that are just playing, but they're not doing anything particularly well. And I think this is a game where this week is the week where you want to start Jahmyr Gibbs in your fantasy league. This is the week where you could get his opportunity to go over 100 yards, get maybe a little bit more carries in 15, maybe in that 15 to 17 range, and he's going to have success because the Raiders' run defense is absolutely terrible as well.
That me and you, because you expressed it in the comments earlier this week, that we're both kind of frustrated with is the usage of Jameson Williams and the fact that him and Antoine Green both had 30 snaps this week. So do you think, kind of your point about Jahmyr Gibbs, like this is a defense that you can truly you have an opportunity to expose. You shut down Max Crosby, it's about it. That's all you really got to do. So do you think this is a week where they kind of implement Jameson Williams and try to get his rhythm going? Because they, in my opinion, Ben Johnson, they really haven't done a good job of trying to get J-Mo in rhythm. It's just been deep shot, and then deep shot, and then deep shot. They don't get him in rhythm. Do you think this is a week that we could possibly see that?
Lucas, fellow ball knower. Absolutely.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
talk about Jameson Williams. Man, okay, this is complicated at the highest level because, number one, you see the talent. The man can get open. But besides that, the position that he's playing, it's just right now, nothing is clicking consistently enough with Jared Goff, with getting open. He's turning around. He's not tracking the football well enough. So the development that you would have expected at this point has not been there. But the Lions are going to keep giving him the opportunity to go out there because of the fact that he's got that blazing speed. He's got a skill that not a lot of people have. But right now, he's trending toward looking like Killian Hayes in regards to the fact that people are not happy when a football bounces off your face and the announcers are laughing at you and you're not consistently catching the football. But this is a guy that I think in totality, the coaching staff is not using well enough. His development and his attention to detail is not good enough. And I think that for the Lions, it would have behooved them to have Jameson Williams involved a little bit sooner. You see all the tape that was out there in regards to what he did well at Alabama. You don't just have to toss him a 30-yard bomb. You can throw him a 2-yard screen and let him get involved, an end around, a handoff. You saw what the 49ers were able to do with Deebo Samuel. you have a guy that's a weapon, but I just think that right now his role is deep threat. But that's just unbelievably difficult to execute on a consistent basis with how NFL defenses scheme. So I think that you got, as a coaching staff, Ben Johnson has to be able to, you have to be able to get Jameson Williams involved in this offense. Now with Marvin Jones gone, he can't be a number 4 receiver in this offense. He's got to elevate himself to number 2 quickly. Otherwise, you're wasting 2 years of a 4-year contract already. And that's not going to be the best return on your investment when you guarantee a guy all that money and you give him a big signing bonus and he's got that value as a first-round pick. So Jameson Williams is an enigma. It's a problem, but they better get it solved quick or things are going to be bad for this offense.
I mean, a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this possibility, but is there any chance, and John, I have a feeling I know where you're going with this, that Jameson Williams just is not good at playing wide receiver? He's a guy whose ceiling is a guy who can just make a couple of deep shots a year, make a couple of big plays, like an Alvin Harper, the former Dallas Cowboy wide receiver. Like maybe that's who Jameson Williams just is. Is that possible, or am I out of line?
He's been on this Alvin Harper stuff,
I have.
John. He really has.
Listen, Sam. I love when you say you're asking the boys who's Alvin Harper and you get the befuddled looks. I know who Alvin Harper is. I love the Cowboys in the 90s but I'll say this. No, Jameson Williams is not Alvin Harper. Jameson Williams is Michael Irvin. You just need the Troy Aikman to get him the damn football. The problem is this. I just think that for whatever reason, Jared Goff and his arm strength and the chemistry is not there. Jared Goff is a perfectionist. He wants the receivers exactly where they need to be. You have a talent that's open, but unfortunately, you're not finding them consistently. And when you only target them 6 times, how is that supposed to be, promote Jameson Williams to get into the football game? I think that all in all, Jameson Williams is going to be, I think, a good wide receiver. Still young, still got a lot of talent. When you got that blazing speed, you're open. But the chemistry is just not there with Jared Goff, who also has to take some responsibility. Multiple times has said, Jameson was wide open and I didn't get him. The touchdown that he had a couple weeks ago, Jameson has to twist and turn to get the football. So this is not all on Jameson. But yes, Jameson has to work the craft a lot more. And I think that he probably took an easier route in college when he was wide open all the time. Maybe didn't do all the work that he needed to do with attention to detail, but he's going to be forced to over the next several weeks. I think he can get there, but at the same time, Jared Goff has to connect with a guy that is wide open. His deep ball, I know everyone talks about it, but at times it's just not as accurate as you'd like it to be. And for Jameson, I think that a lot of work has to continue to be done behind the scenes to get things moving in the right direction. He says he catches 100 balls. He needs to catch 400 balls in order to get to this level to where he can be like Amon-Ra St. Brown. But, Sam, I think it's just a little early to give up on Jameson Williams. The Lions are not going to do that. They're going to give him every opportunity, and you still got a plethora of games to get this moving. So I hope that Jameson Williams can prove people wrong.
Thank you for sticking with us, but I want to ask you about the trade deadline because my thoughts on it, man, and especially when you see the Eagles out here and other NFC teams. I mean, the 49ers they got Randy Gregory, but even last year they got Christian McCaffrey. You got the Eagles going out and trading for former 2-time All-Pro Kevin Byard. All I'm asking for, John, is if you're Brad Holmes and you think this team is close, this is a season in the NFL every year is different. Like, people would rather wait for this thing to kind of keep building organically, but at some point, John, and Brad's done a great job selecting players in the draft, but at some point you got to go get someone that's proven. So go get someone that's proven. And my thoughts on it, when I said this weeks ago, John, I was ripped apart for saying or even suggesting the idea that Aiden needs any type of help, and now everyone thinks Aiden needs help. So I want your thoughts on it. The Commanders, I've seen reports over there, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young. What are some more realistic options for the Lions? What position you think they should pursue, and maybe some players that you have in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely right now looking deeply into what the Lions could do. But real fast to pivot, do you guys ever wonder if a guy like Brandon Katz has ever gotten laid before? With that much insight that he's got into sports, does he just sit there and just comment on everything and not listen to what people are saying? Yes, I said everybody regarding Jameson Williams definitely needs to work on his hands. You sit there, this guy commenting on everything. I think that potentially Brandon needs to get out a little bit more and be a little bit nicer here in the chat.
Yeah, selective hearing. Selective hearing, John.
Yes, spitting all this free knowledge. But let's talk about improving this Detroit Lions team. It's real interesting to wonder, to look at and just say, okay, this is a team. What level of investment is Brad Holmes going to make? Is he going to give up and be willing to give up a day one pick to get the likes of a Patrick Surtain, to get the likes of a higher end talent? I would love that. I think everybody in the chat, maybe besides Brandon, would love that. I think that this football team has the potential. But I think if you're asking me, what does Brad Holmes think? The plan in my mind, when you hear about what Dan Campbell has been saying, I think potentially they targeted 2024 as the year that they're going to make the big push. This is a playoff team. This is a team that's playing well, but are you willing to give up and mortgage the future and future draft capital to maybe get to the Super Bowl? I think that if the Lions do make moves, they're going to make secondary moves, give up day 2 and day 3 picks. So while everybody would love Jonathan Allen, Patrick Surtain, Daniil Hunter, those may be just a little bit, it may be too costly when the market is set. I think they look maybe a little bit in terms of giving up day 2 picks, maybe the likes of a Montez Sweat on the defensive line. Maybe you make the call to Ndamukong Suh, see if he's willing to come back. But I think that on the other side of the football, a player from Denver, a wide receiver, maybe a Cortland Sutton can come in and help out. But yeah, absolutely. You need help. In terms of how I would prioritize it, you need help along the interior of the defensive line. You got to help. Also, Aiden Hutchinson in regards to, right now 4.5 sacks, but teams are easily able to double team him, making him kind of ineffective. He needs to be a little bit more effective and beat those double teams, but I do think you need someone opposite of him and maybe improvements along the interior. It's been a little bit disappointing that Broderick Martin hasn't been able to kind of get out there and test the waters and see what he's been able to do. You also need another defensive back. Maybe the Dante Jackson is the big splash you make, that you go out there and you kind of have, you saw the impact. I mean, look, everybody out there knows that if Will Harris is going to be your starting defensive back opposite of Cam Sutton, it's going to be a long day. Lamar Jackson definitely was excited to see number 25 out there. And I do think they're going to make a move. I do believe they're not going to stand pat because this team has kind of been dealing with some injuries, but I don't think they're going to make the big splash. It would surprise me because we haven't seen that yet. But remember, the other side of that is Brad Holmes did come from Los Angeles, and they were definitely not afraid to give up first-round picks. But I think that here in Detroit, when you heard the comments of Dan Campbell in his weekly interview, you hear that, they're not going to be willing to give up the team vibe and chemistry for anybody. So that kind of lends me to believe more of a role player that they can trust and count on. But it'll be interesting to see these next 4 days what the Lions are willing to try and do.
And that leads me to my question. Do you think this Lions team, as currently constructed, even if they stand pat, even if they make a secondary move, is a legit Super Bowl contender this year?
Is a legit Super Bowl contender? No. That defense is not good enough. And if you don't earn the number 1 seed, you got to go out on the road. I think the 49ers just have better talent across the board, high-end talent. And if the game's in San Francisco, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher. The Eagles, I think as well, are a football team that has a lot of great defensive talent, very stout, can stop the run. Here's the thing, guys. David Montgomery, man, that injury is starting to look real significant. Hopefully he comes back after the bye. But you saw the chaos that it created. If Jared Goff doesn't have that run action, he doesn't have the ability to potentially get the defense off of the wide receivers and have that element of surprise, then he's a sitting target. And I think the two teams that can make that happen, that can stop the run, are the Eagles and the 49ers. But if the Lions are able to secure some home games and end up somehow or another with the number 1 seed, boy, it'll be real interesting to see how this Lions team in the playoffs, the level of hunger that they have to try and get it. I think that they're a team right now, in my opinion, the ceiling is the NFC title game.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for joining the show, man. We appreciate you. Your presence on Thursday is very valued. Again, you can catch John Macaroon really anywhere on Twitter. He's all over the place. This man, publisher of All Lions, of course, host of the Detroit Sports Podcast on Twitter as well. Thank you, John. We'll see you next Thursday. Hopefully after a victory, we can break something down. That'd be fun.
Yeah, fun times. Monday Night Football is going to be wild. Make sure to check out All Lions for videos, highlights, daily analysis, trade rumors, everything going down there. And definitely enjoy the opportunity to talk to you boys. Let's have a good one here. And then it's going to be an opportunity now. Let's get to 6-2 and have a good trade deadline. It's going to be a fun time now. The next couple weeks for the Lions, it's going to be fun, especially with the bye week upcoming.
There you have it, John Macaroon, the man, the